Hello, listen yung lahat. Ang topic natin today is how to unpivot your data. So why do we have to unpivot our columns using Power Query? The primary reasons why we need to unpivot our columns, number one is because we need to normalize our data. And pivoting columns helps in normalizing our data. Normalized data is easier to analyze. It's easier to maintain, especially if we're going to add additional data in the future. And it is also easier to create queries using Power Query. So that's number one. Number two, it's compatibility with a lot of data analysis tool. A lot of data analysis tool would require data to be in a specified format. For it to create data analysis, let's say pivot table, and also charts, or using Power BI to create calculations. Let's say we have this data. This is a cross-tabulated report or already a report that we maintain. It's just a simple report that, let's say it's a regular report that we normally maintain, a sales report. So we have salesperson, and then we have double column headers for the month. These are for the month January and February, and of course, a headers which is for the product. And then we just have total for January, and then grand total, and also total at the bottom. So if we are going to update this report, let's say for March, then we're going columns here, and then we'll type March. So we'll probably do it manually. That's one. And of course, if we're going to have another salesperson here, then we're going to insert again. And then let's say I'll type my name, and then I would manually input my sales data for January, February, or probably for March. So this kind of data format is very difficult to maintain. What we are going to do right now is we're going to turn this data into tabular format using Unpivot in Power Query. And then later, I'll show how we can update it very easily. So we'll send this to Power Query. We just highlight the whole data set. Let's go to data from table range. Now Excel would highlight the whole data. We'll just tick off my table as headers because we have double headers here. We do not want to pick one headers. So let's click OK. So we'll just rename this query. I'll just rename this query. We'll just take out the change type. So as you can see here, yung salesperson is already on the right format. Kasi salesperson and below that are individual salesperson. So let's say if we have this kind of values here, the way to read these values is that 45.729 is the sales value for Diane for the month of January, and then for the product accessories. So ibig sabihin nun, we have data points or three different values that would refer to this amount. Since we have double headers here, the first thing that we need to do is we need to transpose. Let's go to transform, transpose. So now the salesperson is now on the column headers, and then the month and then the product name are now in the row headers. So let's just fill this down. Select fill down. So that's yung mga null values niya na would be filled with the values on the top. So we will format these columns in a while. Next that we're going to do is we are going to promote the headers. Use first row as headers. So now we have the names of the salesperson as our headers. So what we'll have to do next is we will combine the month. We'll just take the change type first. Now we will combine the month and then the salesperson. We'll select both columns, and then we go to transform and merge columns. So you just have to select what kind of separator you would want to use. I'll use equal sign. That's fine. We'll just change the column name after the steps. So we now have a new column, which is a combination of the month and then the product name. So what we'll need to do next is we'll just have to select this merge column, and we would like to unpivot the other column. So since we only have the salesperson as the column headers, and then below that are records, or below that are individual sales value for those specific salesperson. So we can now unpivot. We'll select the first column. We can right click and then we will select unpivot other columns. So now we have the merge column, which we are going to split. We go to transform, split column by delimiter, and then we'll just use the delimiter that we used. I use equal sign, and then at its current stock, that's also fine. The two columns that we previously merged is now split into two values. This is what we call the month. I'll just take out the change type. Let's rename it. This is the month. This is the product name. And this is the salesperson. And then this is the sales or the amount. So what we're going to do next is we'll just filter out those values that we don't want to see. We have totals and grand totals in our data report. So we'll just filter those out. And also sa product, meron tayong grand total and total. So we don't want to see those values. And then the last step, we'll just change the data type for this one. We would like date. That step. That's fine. This one for the currency. Now that we're done with the report, we can now load it to our table. So close and load. So I previously loaded it as a connection only. So we'll load it as a pivot table, and then we'll create a table similar to our original report. So you can load it as a table or as a pivot table report or a pivot chart, then only create connection. You have several options. So we'll create a pivot table out of this. So let's click OK. And then we'll create a similar report from the previous file that we loaded to Power Query para malaman natin that we can create a similar report like this. So, salesperson ng ating headers and column headers natin is the month, product, and then the amounts values. So, we'll just expand this and then we'll expand this as well. We'll just format the amount. Okay, so as you can see, the total value that we have in our original report is 1560. That's also 1560. The total for January, 278, 278. And then for the February total is 1281, 1281. So that's how we can build a similar report, but now it is in a pivot table report. So now what will happen is, what if we have additional data coming in? So previously, an additional salesperson dito, we will insert additional rows for us to include that additional person. Or if we're going to update it into the merged value, we're going to insert again for the March value. What we need to do is we just need to upload the fresh data. So this is our additional data. Just make sure that the structure are the same and also the column headers are the same. So for our additional data, we have a new salesperson, Juan and Cyrus. And Also, Cyrus has a sales for the month of March. So we'll add this to Power Query from table range. And then we'll just change this to date. We'll change this to currency. So let's rename this as the new sales. That's our new sales. And then our query one is the one that we just did. So what we're going to do is we're going to add or to combine this two report using the append. So we go to home, we go to append queries. Append query is new. So probably I'll create a separate video for merge and append queries. What are we going to append? This is append concatenate rows from two tables into a single table. So our first table is yung query, the one that we just did, and then yung new sales report. So let's click OK. We'll just call this combined sales. That is our combined sales from our old report and then the new sales. So let's close and load this new report. Load this as a table, existing worksheet. Let's load it here so that we'll know the difference. Let's click OK. So let's create the similar report. So remember, this is our report without the additional sales, and this is our combined sales. So just make sure that you use the combined sales query. So that's month, that's product, salesperson, and then the amount. So let's just take out the month. This is now our updated report. This is the additional data, right? The additional sales. We have one and we have Cyrus here. We just append the report and then we just created the new pivot table out of those new reports. So Cyrus sales is already here. So I have January, I do have February sales, and then the March sales is already included. Ang March sales ko is this three here, beverage, fruits, and accessories for the month of March. All $200, $200 value. And then for Juan, one is automatically here. One has the February sales for three categories. So that's the accessories, beverage, and fruit. That's how we can create a report that is automatically updated once we unpivot the data and then we receive new sales or new data from the similar structured report, and then we just create a new report out of it. So that's how we can convert our legacy report into a report that we can update automatically. Thank you for watching and see you next time.